Wings fans stand up. Yeah, we gonna throw them wings up, wings up, wings up. Show the league that this is our time. Let's make the city proud. We gon' win the Stanley Cup, Stanley Cup, Stanley Cup. After that we gonna party. We gon' show everybody. We show them all around the world. We show them all around the world. We show them all around the world. We gon' throw them wings up. We gon' throw them wings up.
A replacement for the offense that we'll lose in the play the position that we have in that we lose in trading Anthony in acquiring Jakob and to play in a similar role, as well as Richard Panik, who can play in a variety of roles for us moving forward, as well as draft picks. So we're trying to improve our team. We're trying to become more competitive, but also add assets to assist in the rebuild.
Jeff, while I have you, what are your thoughts on Jeff Blashill and his future with the team as coach?
My Jeff and I will sit down very quickly after the season and discuss that.
Thank you.
The next question is from Brad Gellick, WXYZ.
Steve, I asked Jeff a couple of days ago about some of the young guys on the rosters taking steps this year, and he said he did see progress in some of the guys. Was this a case where you clearly didn't see progress in a guy in Mantha this season taking steps forward, especially after signing a deal in November?
Not so much that. You look around the league, there's a lot of really good players that are having funny years. Some guys are having unbelievable years, and there's some really good players that we would all say are underperforming. In this case, I really look, as we're getting to the trade deadline, we're talking to teams around the league and to trying to see if there's a fit in what we're trying to do. And it really comes more about in conversations with other teams. And again, this is a chance for us to get a similar age player. Jakob's is 2 years to free agency, I believe. His contract's expiring. So we have a little bit of flexibility there, but again, we felt like, hey, we can get a replacement for Anthony and add players or add prospects or picks as well. So just kind of was a fit for a trade, but I think Anthony Mantha is a very talented hockey player, and I hope he does well, and I expect him to do well in Washington. But ultimately, we thought this trade makes sense for us in the near term and moving forward.
Next question, Ansar Khan, MLive.
Yeah, Steve, did this trade come together relatively quickly here in the last day or two, or is this something that had kind of been in the works for a little while?
Brian and I'm not sure exactly when we talked, but we talked about a few other things, really something, just a smaller type of deal early, and then things just kind of grew as we had a conversation. Most as we work our way around the league through the trade near the trade deadline, as I said earlier, you have these discussions with teams and what they're trying to do, what they're hoping to do, and you see if there's a fit. And so we talked a little bit, I don't know, maybe a week ago, I'm not sure the exact day, and then just kind of stayed in touch over the last few days.
And just a little bit more about Vrana. I mean, he's a guy that scored 25 and 24 goals in each of the last couple seasons. Just how important was it when you're losing a big, your leading scorer, even though you only had 11 goals this year, just to replace that offense?
Yeah, well, again, we're trying to take steps forward, and we all love to get draft picks and whatnot, and they're important. You need them, but we also need to put a team on the ice, and I think it's important. Our core of our team is still relatively young, and with Dylan Larkin, with Philip Hronek, and now you see the Zadinas and Rasmussens and other players coming along. We want to surround them with players that help them grow and develop as well. So it's easy. I guess it's an easy thing to do. Just trade out all your good players and get draft picks and all that, but you still got to play. So I think it was important. We looked at some different things, going through the deadline here, and we thought it was a good fit. Like I said, we get a player that goes into our lineup that can play a similar role, and still accomplish what we're trying to do, and that's add to the pipeline, I guess, so to speak. So.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Next up, Trevor Thompson, Valley Sports Detroit.
Steve, I'm just wondering, you talked a bit about the core that you just went through, and it looked like Anthony was a part of the core as you were going forward. With this deal, I'm just wondering what identity you're trying to build, what your ideal goal is down the line as far as the type of players you want to attract and what you're trying to build identity-wise.
Well, Trev, ultimately, it's as simple as we want good players. We want to have a good team. With Anthony's age, with his where he's at in his contract, we feel like if we're going to try and add to our rebuild, if we were to trade him in 3 or 4 years at the end of his contract and get assets, we hope to be a better team at that point. So it just worked out. At this time, we saw a fit. Again, I go back to we were able to get a replacement for Anthony, similar age, and add assets as well. So, our what we're trying to identify as players, we want good players, and Anthony was a good player. Jakub Vrana is a good player. I think it's fair to say both of them were underperforming their historic statistics or personal stats or goal scoring, point production, whatnot. But we look for Jakub to play a bigger role. He's on a very, very good team in Washington with a lot of talent. So we're hoping that he can play a bigger role in our team and thrive in that. So again, the obvious or the simple answer is I'm trying to acquire good players and trying to build a good team.
How much percentage wise did you think you got done at the deadline here? Did you get 80, 90, 100% of what you wanted to accomplish done at the deadline, or do you have a number on that?
It was very strange as far, you all know that we had a number of unrestricted free agents, and going into this, generally teams in our position, you're for the most part looking to, move as many free agents as you can. This was a stranger year than others. We keep saying that about everything. And the market was a little bit different. And I could, I have my own thoughts on why, but every team is different in what they want to do and the reasons for doing it. So to say I accomplished everything, I think I accomplished everything that I could that really made sense for us. Would I've liked to done different things? Maybe, but you can, I guess you do what you can do, and with our players that we had, I'm pleased with the trades that we did make, and we move forward from here.
And my last thing for you, Steve, I'm just wondering, when you look at the players that you've traded in the past and trading Anthony in this situation here, what kind of message it sends to the guys in the room or guys around the league who come to Detroit, if there's a message being sent when you are able to trade impact players like that?
Trevor, I don't know the answer to that question. I honestly don't know what to say. I don't know what message I'm sending to to anybody. I'm trying to build a good team.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Next question, Ted Colfin, Detroit News.
Yeah, Trevor kind of stole my thunder there, Steve. Were you close with anything today or not really?
Was I close with any?
Yeah, obviously.
No, not really. It was relatively quiet, extremely quiet. I got a couple, other than the Anthony Mantha trade, we got a couple of late calls on things that didn't really make sense for us to do without elaborating on them.
Is that a little frustrating? Did you want to do more?
No, frustrating isn't the right word. would we have done more? We've got a lot of draft picks this year. We've got in the coming draft, we've got a lot of draft picks for next year. We do have some unrestricted free agents still on our roster. Would we have moved some of them if offers came along? Potentially, yeah. So, but I don't know that I was frustrated. It just, as we talk with teams around the league, you got a sense that this wouldn't be as active a trade deadline. And, I don't know everything that's happened so far, but seems like it was a little bit quieter than previous years. So in talking with leading up to the deadline, teams that were in our position that I talked to, I got a sense from them that it wasn't going to be as active or as active a market and that might have been done in the past.
Sounds good, Steve. Those guys won't be there in Carolina tonight, right? I mean, they'll be here for the next game, Thursday or whenever.
Yeah, our expectation is to have them here in Detroit for practice Wednesday to play Thursday.
Sounds good. Thanks for this.
Yep, no trouble.
Next up, Larry Lage, Associated Press.
Good afternoon, Steve.
Hi, Larry.
How about being one of the teams that was willing to, funnel deals, to help other teams using up some available cap space to pick up a pick? Is that a function of just the market?
I'm not sure what your question is.
Like with the deal with Tampa, you took on some salary and got a pick. It seemed like other teams did that, and with the flat cap. And, everybody or a lot of teams being tight. Is that just another way to get better without giving up?
Yeah. Well, another way to acquire for us, it's another way to get a draft pick. For the top clubs, and in this one in particular, in Tampa, they're all the top teams for the most part, I think, have cap issues and are trying to navigate the cap. And at this time of year, they're trying to add to their team. So, we were, leading up to the deadline, you're approached by teams to get a sense of, is this something you would consider, using some of your cap space or and cash for that matter to facilitate, to help in a trade, and for that obviously you get some form of compensation. And for us, it's every draft pick has some value. We all have an opinion on what a cash wise a draft pick is worth, and I don't know that there's really a right or a wrong. It's what you're comfortable in assuming and how badly you want these picks. So it was kind of, I thought, a relatively reasonable way of acquiring what do we get in a 4th round pick? So a reasonable cost to acquire a 4th. And we have the cap space, and our issue is more, we have a lot of cap space, so it wasn't that big of a deal this year to do it.
Next up, Max Boltman with The Athletic.
Hey, Steve, I'm curious if there was one part of this Mantha deal, whether it be Vrana, the picks, or I guess the ability to blend both, that you felt was the key. I mean, was there one part of this deal you were particularly excited about?
Well, Max, not particularly. Again, we like the idea of acquiring more draft picks. And prospects. We talked about different things in the deal, what to do, but ultimately we like the combination of adding future assets and adding a player to the lineup as well. We still have to play games. We want to be ready next season. We want to be trying to improve our team again next season. So just a combination of the two, I thought it was a good fit for us.
And then Jonathan Bernier obviously stays put. Have you talked at all about the future with him? Is he someone you'd be willing to extend or re-sign this offseason?
I'm not sure that I've talked to all of our pending UFAs, but my plan right now is to wait. I have some interest in talking to some, potentially to trying to renegotiate or sign new contracts with some of our free agents. I can't say that that's all of them or which ones at this point. I'm going to wait. We'll wait till the end of the season and kind of reevaluate where we're at, and then start to, obviously part of the issue is, we've got an expansion draft to consider as well, and who we protect and who we make available for that. So I think at this time, with a month to go in the season, the best thing we can do is just sit tight on all of our free agents, and we'll make decisions closer to I want to say July 1, but I don't even know when free agency starts this year.
And then with the picks you added, how do you kind of view some of those picks this year? We've talked about the challenges of scouting for this draft. Is it kind of more chances to hit on somebody even when you haven't seen them, or maybe move up? Or I guess, how do you view those picks this year?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year as far as scouting. You know, we don't know what next year is going to look like either. Right now, you know, like Chris Draper and I talk a lot, and I ask him about this year's draft, next year's draft, and it's funny. It's like next year's draft, I don't know. We haven't even seen those kids yet. So, you know, at least they're watching the majority of the kids for this year's draft, or they watched them last year. And the ones that have played this year, with technology now, you know, if you can't get there, you can see it on video, and you do the best you can. Some kids didn't play. There's nothing we can do about that. You know, so either you don't pick those kids, or you rely on what you saw last year. So as I think you would agree, the draft is very unpredictable, hit and miss. It probably is more unpredictable this year. So you can look at it two ways, in that you may get really, really lucky, or you may get really unlucky. So time will tell. You know, we've got a lot of picks, and you know, our guys have been doing the best they can. Our scouting staff doing the best they can to evaluate and you know, look for prospects, and we'll get some. The good thing is, I think we were able to, you know, add a few picks for next year as well, and you know, we don't know what that'll shape up to be for next year, but we've got a balance of the two.
If I could just ask one more quick one, as some of these guys in Sweden wrap up their years, do you have a plan for what you do as they're able to start becoming available? I know Joe's done. Seems like Albert or Jonathan could be relatively soon here. How do you want to handle that?
Yeah, Joe is back in the area. He's got a quarantine, and then we'll figure out what our exact plan is for him after that. We'll wait and see on some of the other kids. We do have a bit of an issue with foreign kids with visas, trying to get them visas to get into the US, and that can be a bit of a challenge. So we're looking into that right now, if some of these kids are available, that we could potentially bring them over. But that is a bit of a stumbling block for us, or a deterrent, or something that may delay it. And if it delays it long enough, there's no point in them coming over. So we're kind of taking it a day at a time and preparing that if we can, if some of the kids become available. But you know, I'm sure you've paid attention in GR. We've had, you know, Donovan Zabrango, for a draft pick, who, you know, missed time in the OHL to play, so he's there, and we've been able to take advantage of the situation and get some of our younger kids in. And if we can, the kids in Europe, if we can get them over, and there's enough games left, that would make sense. We'd like to bring them over.
Thanks very much, Steve.
Yep, you're welcome.
Next question, John Neal, Detroit News.
Hey, Steve, I just wondered, did you have any other serious conversations involving Mantha with other teams? And then I guess along with that, with a deal of this sort of magnitude, how do you weigh the value you can get now as opposed to maybe it towards the draft or something like that?
I talked to a few teams that I thought there was a fit, or maybe there might be something there. Not very many, but certainly you check around the league, and you try to get as many. You know, you see what the market is. You feel the things out a little bit and see who's interested. But to have legitimate talks, it was a small group of teams, and very small group of teams. And your second part of your question, as far as weighing now versus later, that's a really good question, because we sit here and wonder, okay, if we're, you know, do we want to do this now? If we're going to do it, should we wait for the draft? Should we wait a year from now? Like, I don't know the answers to those questions. I have an idea at the draft, and ultimately when we make this trade, I think, you know, how much it may be different. Is it going to be that much better at the draft? Maybe not. So ultimately, I just felt like, you know, if it's something I'm comfortable with, that I know I can do today, I decide to do it because something better may come down the road or not. So, certainly you look at trade deadline and at the draft, I think are two of the periods where maybe trades are most active. At least kind of that's my thought at this point. And ultimately, I like obviously I like the deal enough to do it now. And could we have done something better, different? I really don't know the answer, but I think it would be something similar. The one thing is, the good teams are prepared. The good teams, they're willing to move their picks and prospects at the deadline, but they also have cap issues. So, you got to make money work at times. So at the draft, you bring in more suitors, but I don't know. So anyways, like I said, we like this deal. We were comfortable doing it, and did certainly mull over, John, the idea of, do we wait and see what's there in the future? But at the end of it, obviously decided to go ahead with this particular deal.
And then just last for me, I guess it didn't really change necessarily with this deal, but the flexibility you have in the cap down the line. I mean, I think Dylan's, I suppose, Panic is the only other contract that's beyond next season right now. What does that mean for you? What's the value in that for you?
Well, I would say it's not specifically, but honestly, by design that we've got all these expiring contracts. Generally, with we did a 1-year deal with Tyler Bertuzzi. We weren't able to agree to a longer term deal. We'll certainly, obviously, we're going to have to address this contract at the end of the season or at some point before next season. But with our younger players, for the most part, I'm trying to think. We haven't had a lot of, in my 2 years here, we haven't had that. We had Anthony and Tyler, and you can add any other names in there at that point. But really, I've negotiated 2 contracts, and really with our younger players, in all likelihood, we're probably going to do shorter term deals and decide what we do as they get closer to free agency on doing something longer term or not. So it's really not by design, keeping these things short. But we do have cap space, and that's the way it's worked out. And it gives us, certainly an opportunity to do things, whether it's, explore, free agency. You already see some potential free agents around the league signing their contracts today. So it's hard to plan for free agency because most of the guys you really like don't get there. So we have the ability to do it in free agency. We have the ability to take on players through trades. We have, draft picks and prospects, and prepared to use those in the right trade with players that, that fit the age group moving forward. And there are teams around the league that might have to. I'm not sure how the expansion draft plays out this year, but you might have teams that have to move guys for cap reasons, and we're in a position to do that as well. So we got a chance. Ultimately, we have good players. We intend to keep them here and sign them to the appropriate contracts when that time comes.
Next question from Daniela Bruce with Red Wings TV.
Hi, Steve. Just kind of relating back to Max's question about the draft and it being a strange draft year. There were some rumors flying that the draft date might change. The NHL seemed pretty adamant that they wanted it on the 23rd and 24th. Have you been involved in any conversations with general managers or the league about changing it?
No, there was some discussion over the course of the winter about pushing the draft back. Even as far as a year later. Ultimately, between the National Hockey League and the Players Association, there were some challenges, a lot of challenges actually, to doing that. And everyone agreed that it's probably just the best just to hold it at the end of the season, hold it this off season. So we're fine with that, and we'll do the best we can under the situation.
Okay, so no further discussion on that. But
not
then,
that I'm aware of.
Also, awesome. Thank you. And then I did want to ask you, you mentioned Zadina, Hronek, and Rasmussen earlier, and if you could just give an evaluation of their growth this season.
Well, they're playing in the league. They are, I think they're positively contributing. It's a grind for them out there every night. It's not like they're, putting up big numbers, but that's okay. They're competing really hard. They are doing a lot of good things. They're growing as players. I see just in all three of those guys, I see a difference in their play from a year ago. They're having more of an impact on the ice with each shift and each situation they're in, and they're not regressing their confidence. I don't know. When we watch players, you can see guys who are really assertive and feel good about themselves and are competing, and regardless of what the statistics are, they look like they're really having a positive impact. And I think all of three of those young players, Philip's played a lot more games than Filip Hronek has played a lot more games than Phil Zadino or Michael, but all three of them are having a real positive impact and are becoming more effective players. So that's very encouraging. But what I really am pleased about is they're getting in there, they're involved, and they're competing hard. And I think they feel real good about themselves as far as their contribution. But it's a grind out there for them. It's a tough league, and they're being asked to do a lot. And I think they're just continue to improve. So I'm really pleased with their development.
And then last from me, Jared McIsaac was activated from IR and assigned to Grand Rapids. Is he fully healthy and ready to go?
I think he's real close. Yeah, we. There may be I think if they play this, I'm lost on what day it is even, but I think there's a chance he plays this weekend.
Cool. Well, thank you. That's all from me.
Okay.
Next up, Mike Stone, 97 won the ticket.
Hi, Steve. The two of the guys you got today were restricted free agents. How does that affect the expansion draft? Do they have to be protected?
Actually, yeah. Well, Jakub Vrana is an unrestricted or as a restricted free agent. Richard Panik has 2 years left on his contract. So Richard obviously is in a position that either we protect him or have to expose him to the expansion draft. I should know this, right? But restricted free agents, like he'll have to, Jakub would have to be protected whether he's signed or not. And he doesn't, unsigned restricted free agents aren't considered, Max probably would know this, so he could answer better than me, but your restricted free agents, if they're not signed to contracts, you can't, I don't think you can expose them unless they've been QO'd already. You can't, they're not eligible to be those players that meet the requirements for Seattle.
And the other thing is, without getting into specifics, because I'm sure you couldn't, before he got hurt, how much interest was there in Bobby Ryan around the league?
I had a team inquire about him. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Just, you know what? It was a very, Mike, I think it was a very quiet deadline. Normally you have a good idea a lot earlier than we did this year. And like, honestly, on some of our players, literally, I heard for the first time yesterday, and it was kind of common around the league. You're sitting here going, geez, nobody's calling and there's no interest. So unfortunately, what is it? Roughly a week ago, Bobby's out. And in the last few days, a lot of teams called. So potentially there may have been more interest. But it was just a different time. It was, really on a lot of the free agents that it was just quiet until, even yesterday checking in our players, and he's out for the season already at this point.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
Last question from Artwagner, DetroitRedWings.com.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, Art.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
I am doing well as usual. The reason I wanted to ask you this question. First of all, July 28th is the restricted free agents and unrestricted free agency. That's when it begins this year, if the league hasn't changed it. I'm kind of curious, because you've stated several times that you thought that this is, a weird year and that it might be slow. Are you surprised that you were able to pull off a deal of this magnitude, which really has kind of blown the whole NHL up right now? It's like the talk of the league.
Well, I don't know that it's a deal of great magnitude. Like if you're talking, I don't know. It's like we call these hockey trades, I guess, hockey deals. We traded a good young hockey player for a good young hockey player and a veteran hockey player and a couple of draft picks. To me, it's not an earth-shattering trade. It's certainly not, Wayne Gretzky getting traded to the Los Angeles Kings. So, and I don't mean to, belittle the trade. It's a big deal. But at this time, the hardest part is when you're making trades with players for players, is trying to figure out the cap situation. That's the biggest stumbling block for us all, and that was a challenge in this one as well. It's finding the right fit for the trade, and then ultimately now, okay, we got to make it work. Like Washington is a really good team, and they're at the cap, and we talk about this or that, and there's reasons you can't do certain things. So again, I don't know that it's that big of a deal. I want this trade to work out for both teams, and a couple of good young players, and Richard Panik, a veteran that's been around for a long time, and some picks. So I don't know what to say.
Also, if I understand this correctly, the draft that's coming up on the 23rd, 24th, the players that are eligible for the 2021 draft, you and your scouting staff have pretty good books on these guys. It's actually the 2022 class that seems to be some uncertainty, right? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Like a lot of the, your focus. I think most teams you're watching for the future as well when you're scouting. But I say, like, a lot of the 22 draft eligible kids didn't play as much. They're playing more limited, and you're focusing on the 21 draft eligibles. So, it's gonna be interesting, because right now, like, your guess is as good as mine as, what the NHL or any league is going to look like next year. Are we going to be able to play? Is the border going to open up? What are our divisions going to be? That goes for every junior league, every European league as well. We really don't know at this stage. We're hoping that we're somewhat back to business as usual. And again, I don't know. So we'll do the best we can for the 22s, and the guys watch when they go to games now. The games that they can get to, or the games they're watching on video, they're watching the 22 draft eligibles as well. It's just we haven't got as good a book on them. We don't have a great book on the 21, so it's less of a priority in the 22s.
And one final question, Steve, with in these last 13 games, will there be a point where maybe you, I don't know, for lack of a better term, throw caution to the wind and field or put a team on the ice that is, shall I say, prospects heavy, guys who are inexperienced, just to see where they're at, how they handle the NHL situation?
Yeah, well, right now we have with the team Dennis Chalowski, Gus Lidstrom, who we recalled from Grand Rapids this week. We expect to see them. We have Giovanni Smith, who's been in and out a little bit. We'll see him in. Potentially we might see more, depending on what our roster is. You have limitations as far as recalls and emergency or recalls. Those are issues we have to deal with. So we're allowed 4 recalls. So we'll be careful with that. But you'll see Chalowski, Lidstrom for sure, probably Smitty somewhat. Is it anybody else potentially? Yeah, I would say specifically Joe Veleno. Maybe we have the ability to do that. He's back from Europe, and we can decide that. We have time to decide that to see him. But yeah, there are in particular with Dennis or Smitty or Gustav Lindstrom, is those players, one are third-year pros, two would be required or are required to be protected, and 3 would need waivers next year. So it's a good opportunity for us to see how they're doing and make decisions on where they fit next year, where they fit in relation to the expansion draft and our roster for next year, and prepare us for the off season. So there's a lot of reasons, and one, they've worked hard and they're in their third years. It's give them some opportunity here as well. So a lot of reasons to see some of these young kids up here.
All right. I know I said one more last question, but one more, Steve. And, I have to ask this. If Mo Seider's team is eliminated and they're still part of the season, could he potentially be a Red Wing this year?
Yeah, maybe. Again, I said earlier, he's on a really good team. I think they're in the first round right now. Their team could go all the way. And then we've got to deal with quarantining and visa issues. So if we want him to win a championship over there, I want him to play. That would be great for him and his team. So I hope he goes as long as he can. And if that doesn't happen and we can bring him back, we'll certainly do everything we can to bring him back for sure.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yep.
Those are all the questions.